The NFL playoffs kicking off this weekend. Let's take a look at some of the more surprising teams of the year. Now, earlier this week, we talked about the most disappointing teams we had this NFL season. You guys seem to really like that video. So let's take a look at the other side of things. Yes, there were teams that were really bad that should have been good, but we also had teams that people were sleeping on that had fantastic years, and some of them are going to be playing this weekend. When it comes to my definition of the most surprising team, these are teams that performed better than expected, or honestly, for some of these cases, they performed at expectations. See, as we go through some of these divisions, some of these teams, like, all right, it's a little bit of a stretch, but looking at us, who we could have picked, there really wasn't much. Before we hop into it, if you guys have not already, get on there and drop a like, and let's talk about the most surprising NFL teams from each NFL division. So taking a look at the AFC West right here, I do think there are two ways you could go about it, whether it be the Chargers or the Broncos. Now, for me, I think the Chargers' 11-6 season is a little bit more impressive than the Broncos' 10-7, so that is where we are going to be talking about today. The Chargers had a top 10 pick, and I know the Broncos had an early pick last year selecting Bo Nix, but this team was not as bad as the Chargers were last year. Well, they did finish a little bit better. The Chargers dumped all of their veteran, historic, Keenan Allen's, Mike Williams, Austin Eckler's. They told him to kick rocks last offseason, and everyone was like, what is going to happen with this offense? Well, let me tell you, Ladd McConkey comes in, absolute monster. Quentin Johnson, he still has his fair issues of drops, but he is looking like a legit NFL player. We know Justin Herbert is a good football player, and of course, Coach Jim Harbaugh, he is a winner. I think when you put all of those together, you just get a good football team. The Harbaugh model of running the football to open up the pass game, it is exactly what this Chargers team needed. J.K. Dobbins, you had Gus Edwards, and the defense played better than a lot of people expected. I'm a big fan of this Chargers team. Will they get first round bounce in the playoffs? It's hard to say. I could see a world in where they beat the Texans, but I also could see a world in where this team is still young and upcoming. But if you are a Chargers fan, there's a lot to be excited about. So some of these divisions, like the AFC East, are going to be hard to pick a quote-unquote most surprising team because we all thought the Bills were going to be good, but maybe we didn't think the Bills were going to be this good, so that's who I went with. You can't go with the Dolphins. They were disappointing. The Jets, I mean, it's the Jets. And then the Patriots, I mean, Drake May looked good, but besides that, they weren't good at all. Buffalo, their offense. Going into the regular season, your wide receiver one was a combination of Keon Coleman, Mac Hollins, and then where is my boy, Khalil Shakir. And I don't think a lot of people thought that was going to be very good. And you got the James Cooks, the Dalton Kincaids, the Dawson Knox of the world. You got a decent offensive line, and of course you do have Josh Allen, a potential MVP this season. But people did not think the Buffalo Bills offense was going to be cooking on all cylinders. There were times during this year's regular season where this Buffalo team looked absolutely unstoppable going through some of their games. This offense was absolutely nuts. They finally got over the hump. They beat the Chiefs. This Rams-Bills games, I know they lost here, but this was the game of the year for me. Look at Josh Allen's stat line right here. 342 yards, 3 touchdowns, 10 carries, 82 yards rushing with 3 touchdowns. I mean, this guy is an absolute monster. Obviously, they end up losing that game. The offense, absolutely nuts. Now, the biggest issue people have with the Buffalo Bills, their run defense. People run all over the Bills, but the thing about the Buffalo Bills, they are going to score points. So, if you score points, you can't run your way into a game. Looking at a super weak AFC East division, again, it was a clear-cut answer. I do think Buffalo was the most surprising team, and I think it has more to do with their offense than their defense. Defense was pretty good this year. It's a good team. They are a contender. Buffalo Bills, most surprising AFC East team, I guess you can say that. So looking at the AFC North, this was another one where it was like, okay, what do I want to do with it? I'm going to go with the Steelers coming in at number 2, being a wild card team at 10-7. If you told me at the beginning of the season, the Steelers make the playoffs, but the Bengals don't, I would have laughed in your face. I really would have thought it would have been the other way around. Justin Fields and Russell Wilson, what are you saying? Well, the Steelers did exactly what the Steelers do. They get a winning record, and then they kind of, cool off. You guys can see right there, they've lost the last 4 games. But for the majority of this season, the Steelers looked like a very competent offense with an elite defense, which is the Steeler model of football, but still, this year's offense was a little bit different. I think that's where I want to focus this on right here. By the way, we don't have any numbers on these videos. It's just purely based off vibes and like my thoughts on everything. We will get numbers up in here in the offseason, but right now, we're just here for the vibes. Taking a look, though, at the Steelers offense. We got Russell Wilson. Did he have a great year? No. Did he have a good year? Yes. George Pickens is elite. Yes, he crashes out way too often. But it's George Pickens. He's going to make plays when he's on the field, when he's making plays. Top tier player right there. Najee Harris, I think I think Jaylen Warren is better than Najee Harris, but you do have two really solid running backs right there. You got Pat Freiermuth, you got Darnell Washington, you got a very solid offensive line. Zach Frazier is looking like one of the steals of the drafts, a very good center. And the defense. I mean, we all know about the Steelers' defense. They're pretty much what they are known for, headlined by TJ Watt. You got a good secondary. Where is my boy Cameron Hayward? This team is elite. You got Patrick Queen, Peyton Wilson, the rookie. Very good defensively. Like I said, though, the offense was better than expected. Now, they don't have a wide receiver, too. A combination of Calvin Austin, Van Jefferson, and I guess you could say Cordell Patterson isn't going to get the job done long term. There's an entire NFL offseason. If you guys missed yesterday's video, we talked about the best, offensive free agents. There are so many wide receivers going into the market. They will be fine. There's also an entire draft. Do I think the Steelers can win it all this year? No, I don't even think they're going to make it out of the first round. But going forward, if you can build off this year offensively and continue doing what you do on the defensive side of things, this team has a very bright future. So let's talk AFC South. This was a weird one. People thought Houston was going to be better than they were. The only issue with this division, nobody else was good. The Colts, I wanted to make an argument, but Anthony Richardson was just the most hot and cold and didn't want to play football player, so I can't put him there. I was surprised how bad Anthony Richardson looked. The Jags, they were 4-13. The Titans, they got the first overall pick. So maybe I'm shocked the Titans, tanked correctly, but I don't want to go with that. I want to go with Houston. Like I said, though, it wasn't the greatest season. Team did have a lot of injuries and a lot of gruesome, bad injuries. We don't need to talk about that today, but I definitely think that did do something with their morale. The Texans are cold going into the playoffs. If you want to just take a look at their recent, not even the recent games, but how they started off the year. They got killed by the Vikings in week 2, but they beat the Bills, they beat the Patriots, lost to the Packers, beat the Colts, lost to the Jets, lost to the Lions, they beat the Cowboys, lost to the Titans. It's a weird season to be a Texan fan. To the Chiefs, it's a weird team. Now, 10-7 will win you the division. In some divisions, in other divisions, it makes you a wild card team. I think the AFC South has just historically been weak over the last few years. The Colts have been iffy. The Jags, Trevor Lawrence, what happened to you? Maybe Ben Johnson will save your career. And of course, the Titans haven't been competent for the last few seasons. I think as a whole, this division was just disappointing. If you have to pinpoint one team to be the most surprising, I guess we have to go with the Texans, but I don't know. I'm not rocking with it. Put on over to the NFC now. We got the NFC East. I think this one is pretty clear-cut, chopped-up answer. It is going to be the Commanders, who ended the year on a 5-game win streak. Taking a look at the Commanders season, obviously they started the year out hot. They lose to the Bucs week 1, but that doesn't count. That's Jaden Daniels' first game. But then after that, win. Giants, it's the Giants. They don't kill the Bengals on Sunday Night Football, Monday Night Football. It was a primetime game, but they win that game. They kill the Cardinals, kill the Browns, lose to the Ravens, but beat the Panthers with Marcus Mariota. Let me throw that in there. Beat the Bears, obviously, on a Hail Mary. Beat the Giants again. Lose to the Steelers, lose to the Eagles, lose to the Cowboys. At this point in the season, I'm a Commanders fan, and I was like, oh God, here we go again. Especially after that Cowboys game. If you know that game was just heartbreaking on all sorts of different fields. But then we end the year. Kill the Titans. The Saints game, that's a conversation for another day. I don't think the refs wanted us to win the game. We beat the Eagles without Jalen Hurts. We beat the Falcons in prime time, and we finally beat the Cowboys. So yes, this team is surprising. Anytime a team picks second overall in the previous year and brings in a young quarterback, you don't think this team is going to make the playoffs yet again, win 12 games. But here we are with the Commanders. Obviously, Dan Snyder sells the team. Thank the Lord. We bring in a basically entirely new coaching staff, and we kind of revamped this roster up with all of this cap space. Shout out Adam Peters for literally saving my life, highlighting a few players that just made this year shocking. Frankie Louisville, our best defensive player. Bobby Wagner, it's Bobby Wagner. Legion of Boom, absolute beast. Zacchaeus, this is the most frustrating Commander wide receiver to watch in your life. He drops the easy ones, makes the hard ones. It's just the way he plays ball. The offensive line was surprisingly better than I thought. Dante Fowler Jr. played well. We got some decent cornerbacks. Ben St. Juste is not one of them, but Marshawn Lattimore, and of course, Terry McLaurin. And finally, Jaden Daniels. Jaden Daniels is probably the most surprising player to win Rookie of the Year in a while. Maybe not, but if you told me in the beginning of the season that Jaden Daniels would win it over Caleb Williams, I thought you were crazy. Look at the Bears offense. It's freaking Caleb Williams, but no. Jaden Daniels, he is that guy, and, Commanders, very surprisingly good this year. Moving on to the NFC West now, we got the LA Rams, Seattle Seahawks, Cardinals, and 49ers. Well, I'll tell you two things. It's not going to be the Cardinals. It's definitely not going to be the Niners. The Seahawks didn't make the playoffs, so it is going to be the Rams. This Rams had, I guess the Rams team in general had a very weird season. Taking a look at their games, 10-7. They lost a lot of games they probably should have won, but they also won some games that maybe they should not have won. Where's the Buffalo Bill game we talked about earlier? You got to win that game to make the playoffs, and they did it. This Rams team is heating up on all cylinders at the right time. They have a very inconsistent offense. I mean, take a look at these scores really here. You score 44 points one week, and then you score 12 points the next week. I mean, yes, this game was like raining and snowing or whatever was going on there, but 12 to 44. Like, do the math right there. It doesn't really add up. They also force feed the ball to Puka Nacua, but that's a conversation for another day. Taking a look at the roster, like I said, Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp, Matthew Stafford. You got Jimmy G in there just chilling on the bench. Kyron Williams. This is a very stud-led offense. Taking a look at the defense, they keep doing this, where they keep finding just random gems in the draft. If that is one thing the Rams do well, it is draft to perfection. The Rams are the Memphis Grizzlies of the NFL. If you know, you know. They just find random players in the draft, and they end up just being absolutely insane. Cameron Kinchins. I mean, we knew who Jared Verse was. Braden Fiskey. Kobe Turner. Where is the DB that I am thinking of right now? Kobe Durant. Obviously, Cameron Curl came in free agency, but they just keep Byron Young. They just keep finding players that are good, that nobody, I mean, I guess everyone's sleeping on. Kyron Williams, Puka Nacua of years past. These guys are just really good drafters. Anytime you can draft really well, you typically have a pretty good roster, and when you throw in the veterans, you lose Aaron Donald in the offseason, and I was like, this team might be cooked. They're not cooked. They're in the playoffs. Will they be a first-round exit? That's a conversation for another day. Rams, surprisingly good. NFC South, I think there are a few ways you could go about this. I'll just tell you guys right now, I am going with the Bucks. We got the Falcons, the Panthers, and the Saints. Now, I wanted to do a world where I could have thrown the Panthers in there, but they just lost way too many games they should have won. If they were 8-9 or 7-10 this year, they probably would have been my pick, because Bryce Young looked really, really good to end the season. Obviously, started off the year, got benched for Andy Dalton, comes back in, had that phone call with Rod Wave, and dude's been, he's been that guy since then. Talk about the Bucks here. Everyone going into the NFL season thought this was the Falcons' division to lose, and well, they lost it. Therefore, they were on the disappointing list. But the Bucks, they made the playoffs last year. They end up beating the Eagles, and this team is just weird. I mean, obviously, you got Mike Evans. Chris Godwin goes down for the year. Jalen McMillan steps up big at the end of the year. You find something really special in Bucky Irving. Rashad White might not be as good as people thought. You got a really good offensive line. Sean Tucker can come in and give you 150 yards one game a season, which I am all here for. The biggest issue with this Bucks team is going to be their pass defense, but the run defense with Vita Vea is going to be good. I don't know. It's a weird division because I wanted to give it to the Panthers, and I was really trying to find an argument of how I could say the Panthers were the most surprising team, but I really just think it's Bryce Young being surprisingly good. As a team, winning 5 games isn't that good, like, you know? But the Bucks, they're in the playoffs, 10-7. Hopefully next year the NFC South can be a little bit more competitive. I do think it will. I think the Saints are going to be god-awful, but the Bucks, Falcons, and Panthers all probably will take steps to being competent. So last up, we got the NFC North. I'm going to go with the Vikings. Now, obviously, the Lions are the best team in the NFC and the best team in football, honestly. But, I mean, we all thought the Lions were going to be good. Vikings, you lose Kirk Cousins in the offseason. You really don't do much except sign in Sam Darnold. You lose Jonathan Grenard and bring in, who did they bring in? Am I tripping off my mind right here? I know this. Apparently, I just don't know ball. They brought in Jonathan Grenard and they let Danielle Hunter walk. They actually had a very good offseason. Reading this article right here, you guys can see all the names they brought in on top of Sam Darnold and Andrew Van Ginkel. A lot of these players actually made meaningful minutes for them. Up top, you have the Aaron Jones, the Sam Darnolds of the world, and I think that's where I want to talk about them. You know, you lose Kirk in the offseason, everyone thinks you're absolutely cooked, but you're not. You have a Sam Darnold legacy year. He is still 27 years old, so there is still potential for Sam Darnold to be the quarterback of your team for the future. You have J.J. McCarthy just getting right on the bench. What do you do with him? T.J. Hawkinson is still very good. Obviously, we have Justin Jefferson. You have Jordan Addison. You got Aaron Jones, who, what's the deal with him? We'll have to wait and see. Stephon Gilmore had a very, very good year. And I mean, we can talk about this defense really quick. Good names on defense, but it's kind of like a ragtag group, obviously headlined by like Harrison Smith and a super old Stephon Gilmore. Andrew Van Ginkel he won't be in the conversation for Defensive Player of the Year, but I think he should be. You'll end up winning 14 games and have one heck of a season. Vikings, were you surprised when they, won 14 games? I definitely was, and I think a lot of people were. That all said, boys, that is every single NFL division's most surprising team. Once again, you go down there and drop a like, and I'll catch you boys back here. Want to catch up. Until then, have a fantastic rest of your Saturday. Go watch football. I love you guys. Peace and have a good one.